Dana White the other night announced a number of really big fights for UFC 314, and one of the ones that I kind of feel is flying under the radar is this fight between Patricio Pitbull Freite, the former Bellator two-division champion, and Yair Rodriguez. This fight is awesome and one that I'm very much looking forward to. And I got a little bit of a soft spot for Patricio Pitbull. This was a guy that fought in the original Bellator with Bjorn Rebney, worked his way up through the tournament, became kind of a household name, kind of like Michael Chandler, but Pitbull opted to stay with the promotion, was making very good money, had a lot of big fights, including a fight with Chandler. And I didn't think the UFC would sign him after he parted ways with PFL because he's a lot older. He's 37 years old, but they've decided to give him a chance in this fight with Yair Rodriguez. And I think this is great matchmaking. So we heard before that Yair Rodriguez was linked to a fight with Diego Lopez in Mexico City. I remember a lot of people were up in arms on that, but I kept telling you guys in the chat, like, it's about business. Like, they're not going to do Movsar Evloev and Diego Lopez in Mexico City instead of doing Yair Rodriguez and Diego Lopez in Mexico City. Does Yair Rodriguez deserve a Diego Lopez fight or vice versa? Probably not. It should be Movsphere, but what are the fans in Mexico going to be more excited for? They're going to be excited for that fight. I think this fight, even though it's not in Mexico City, we know now that they went with Brandon Moreno and Steve Erceg. This is just a great matchup for both because Yair's in this weird spot, right? Like, he's, had the interim title. He's had some great success, some good wins in the weight class. He's coming off a loss, but he doesn't fight that much. He's had injuries. He's had a lot of setbacks throughout his career. And I feel like he's one of these guys that's still a big name in the weight class, but is kind of just floating around a bit. We don't really know what he's capable of or if he's going to get to that title shot. And I think that Pitbull has a lot to prove as well. He did very well over in Bellator, but can he find the same success that he had in Bellator in the UFC? I think that's one of the big questions. We've seen a number of Bellator fighters come over: Hector Lombard, Eddie Alvarez, Michael Chandler. In the case of someone like Chandler, not a ton of success. He's only got, I think, 1 or 2 wins, Tony Ferguson and Dan Hooker to be exact here. So I think this is a great opportunity for Pitbull to, make a name for himself in the UFC and familiarize those, UFC only fans. And I think for Yair Rodriguez, it's a good opportunity for him to fight someone that's, if you're a hardcore fan, to beat a Patricio Pitbull would be very cool on the resume, I think, too. The key thing here is the age gap. So Yair Rodriguez, 32 years old, Patricio Pitbull, 37. So there's about a 5-year age gap here. And Yair Rodriguez is going to be a lot bigger here. He's 5'11" compared to 5'6" for Patricio Pitbull, 71-inch reach to 65. So that's where things are going to be very interesting here. The big question is with Rodriguez being so inactive and Pitbull being, although I guess, let me actually check their last couple fights here. But, I think Rodriguez is, he hasn't been able to build up a lot of momentum. So he's coming off that loss to Brian Ortega in a fight that he was actually looking pretty good in, but ended up getting choked out. And then the fight prior to that was the Volkanovski title fight, but that was a year before. So he fought back in February of last year. So again, going to be more than a year that he steps back in the cage. Had the 2 fights in 2023, but has dealt with a lot of different injuries and a lot of different things throughout his career. So that's another factor in this fight. Like, Yair's taken some damage too throughout his career. So how will that pay off in the matchup? But like I said, he will have the height and reach advantage. He's also going to be younger in this spot. Now, Patricio Pitbull, one of the reasons he was able to get his release from PFL, I think, was they, for whatever reason, couldn't book him. There was issues booking fights and all that different stuff. And that's sort of one of the things that has led him to come over to the UFC. He's coming off that win over Jeremy Kennedy, which in some degree was a sort of the turn back the clock fight. A lot of people thought that Kennedy was going to win that. He was younger. And Kennedy, if you remember, had a short UFC stint himself. And I always remember Jeremy Kennedy calling out Alexander Volkanovski in the UFC and fought him in Australia. And that ended up being a terrible idea. He got, finished in that fight. But, again, Kennedy was a guy that, it seemed to have rebuilt his career in Bellator. And it was supposed to be this long-awaited title shot for him. And Patricio Pitbull went out there and finished him. So that was very, very, very good. Now, prior to that, he had the loss against Suzuki in Rizin, got finished in the first round there, and then also lost to Sergio Pettis in a bantamweight fight. So again, Yair Rodriguez never fought at bantamweight. Patricio Pitbull has. He's also fought at lightweight, so he's been bouncing around a little bit, and he's also has a lot more fights than Yair Rodriguez. Check this out: Patricio Pitbull 36-7, Yair Rodriguez 19-5, so 25 compared to 40-something. My math's not good, that's why I'm doing this. So that's kind of why there's going to be a lot of wear and tear on Pitbull as well too. Now, as far as a pick for this fight, I am going to go with Yair Rodriguez just for the simple fact that, again, we've seen him get to the high levels of the UFC. He's gotten a title fight with Volk. Is Pitbull that guy? Maybe. But we're going to find out in this fight. Now, saying that, though, Pitbull's got a good opportunity to do what he did in his last fight against Jeremy Kennedy, and that is prove his doubters wrong. We know he's good everywhere. He's got a great ground game. He's got knockout power. The thing for me, though, is a little bit undersized for the weight class, and he's also older. So those are things that don't exactly work in his favor. But I think this is a good test for him here because I'll tell you what, if Patricio Pitbull wins this fight, he might get fast track like a Chandler. I mean, he doesn't have the same persona and personality that a Michael Chandler does. He also doesn't speak English, very well because he, usually uses a translator for his interviews. But this is a great opportunity for him here. And again, for Yair Rodriguez, I think this is still a pretty good fight for him, taking on a champion in another organization. This is a fight that they would have talked about years ago when both these guys were, doing well in their respective organizations. So I think that adds a little bit of intrigue as well. But I think at the end of the day, you look at Rodriguez, you look at who he's lost to. Again, did get submitted by Brian Ortega in his last fight. But overall, Volk's the only other guy to finish him. I guess Edgar as well finished him a couple years back. But you look at him there, usually he's the guy who's doing quite well. But I think this is actually more even than people think. Again, you look at the age and you look at all the wear and tear. I think with Rodriguez, sometimes he had he beats a Josh Emmett and finishes him, and that's like a really impressive fight. And then, he's had some, even like the Korean Zombie fight that he won, he was losing that back in 2018. So I think there's still some questions about Yair Rodriguez. I'm going to side with him, though. Again, the youth, the height and reach should get it done. But this is going to be a really good fight, and I hope this one does not fly under the radar here, because this is one of the really, really cool fights that they added to this card here. So again, my early pick for this one is going to be Yair Rodriguez. If I get some time, we'll do an early look on this one, but really interested to see how this fight unfolds. Again, I'm still in Seattle, so that's why I'm doing these remotely. Don't have the cool background, but let me know in the comments what your prediction is for this fight. Follow me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, @LynchOnSports. My name is James Lynch. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.